Hi all, I'm just with Damien Cooley from Cooley Auction Centre. In my opinion, in 25 years of being in the industry, he is the #1 gun out there at the moment. We've been lucky enough to secure 5 minutes of his time, and I just wanted to ask Damien how he has seen the market in the last month or so. We're starting to see some really interesting data coming through in different price ranges of the eastern suburbs in Sydney. But Damien's the best person I think I should be consulting this morning. How are you finding
Thanks,
this?
Rick. Oh, look, there's no doubt that the market has been really strong. We've certainly seen from the beginning of this year a lot more strength start to build, particularly in the first quarter of the new calendar year. And as we're now moving into the end of the financial year, we've also seen a lot of strength. It's quite interesting to see that as the property market has been moving into that winter period, stock levels have been relatively tight.
Yes,
there's been some great sales take place, but there's also a lot of new buyers that are entering the market every single day. And any property that hasn't sold at auction has generally been attracting a lot of activity immediately post-auction.
Are you finding that much at all? I'm finding that most of the properties we're putting up, we're pretty much selling prior or at auction, but there's a couple that get through the cracks sometimes. How are you finding it Sydney-wide?
Well, sometimes they do get through the cracks. Saturday, for example, we had 67 properties go to auction. Incredible to think that 24 of those actually did sell before auction. We had a clearance rate of 87%.
Wow.
58 of those 67 sold either before the auction or on the day. And
now, just to interrupt, just to put that into perspective, we all talk about 80%, 85, even 90%. The reality is, from an agent's point of view, an industry standard has been 50 to 55%. So these are incredible numbers.
They really are. And I like to break it down even one step further and say that, in a hard market, you would be expecting to see a clearance rate for auction anywhere between 35 to possibly 47%. That would be a hard market. In a good market, you would expect to see a clearance rate, or an average market, you would expect to see a clearance rate anywhere between 50 and possibly 60%. In a strong market, you'd expect to see a clearance rate between 70 and 80%.
So we're right up there.
And in a boom market, you're really above that 80% mark. And Rick, that's really what we've been seeing for quite some time. A very, very strong boom market in Sydney, and some pretty incredible prices that are being achieved. But don't forget, it wasn't that long ago before when we were at 50 and 60% clearance rate. So it's a great time for sellers, but it's also a great time for buyers. They've got a lot of clarity with where they're at now. Interest rates are remaining very low. The trend for rates has been down. There are some economists that are even suggesting that we might even get a further rate cut between now and the end of the year. So who knows where we'll be at the end of the year, but I think there's really good things to come for the property market.
Are you in agreement with me that I still see a lot of steam in this marketplace? I still see growth, certainly in the next year and a half, who knows beyond that. But
I really do, Rick, and I think you've got to look at what are the reasons why the market will continue to grow. Over the next few months, well, we're in the middle of winter now, stock levels have been relatively low. We're coming into July, August, the beginning of spring, September. These months traditionally are great months for selling, where stock levels are low. There are new buyers that are entering the market all the time. Rates are low, rates are remaining low. There's a possible downward trend for rates. You can get a 3-year fixed rate loan for circa 4%. When there's clarity for buyers and there's a reduced level of property on the market, that is only putting pressure on prices. And someone said to me the other day, are we in a real estate bubble? And I said, we're not in a real estate bubble, we're in Sydney. And I think that buyers and vendors alike, everyone needs to understand that we live in a very popular city. This is a world-class city. We have one of the best, if not the best, harbours in the world. There is a shortage of land, essentially, in the markets that we sell in. And when you look at even the eastern suburbs as one particular segment of that market, there's only one way we can go, and that's to go up in prices and up in terms of height limits. So if you own land in great places with great views, these are properties that are always going to attract a lot of interest.
Damien, could I just ask you, only because I know you're really, really busy and I appreciate you giving up the time, 2 positive tips, 2 things you shouldn't do at auction And possibly two things you should definitely do at auction. Just your insights.
Well, I would also say, Rick, that auctions are very different. Every auction is very different. Sometimes you turn up to auctions, there's lots of registered bidders. Other times you might turn up to auctions and there's not as many bidders as you might expect. And it's challenging for purchasers. And I think in the current market, we certainly can sympathise and feel a lot of the frustration that's coming out in the way a purchaser might act at an auction. But there are some things that you can do to try and outsmart your competition, and in many respects also try and outsmart the auctioneer.
Yeah.
I think one great strategy I saw recently where it's all about almost having an air of arrogance about the way you bid at an auction, because ultimately you want to try and scare the bidders off, scare off your competition. I had one recently where a purchaser started the bidding at 800,000 and then they said, no, actually make it 830. And they bid against themselves, and it was a really arrogant way of saying, I don't care what I'm going to pay for this property, I'm just going to buy it.
Yes.
And the reaction from the other parties was almost very daunting towards everybody else in the room.
So it
was a great strategy, and it was something that even I really thought, yeah, great idea.
Yes.
Other purchasers might
bid strong.
Bid strongly. You know, you've got to bid with confidence.
Yeah.
Let the purchasers know that you're there to bid at any cost. Obviously, you've got to do your homework. You've got to do your research. But it's very important that when you turn up to an auction that you've got a strategy in mind, but don't miss that property for $5,000 or $10,000. I see a lot of buyers miss out on properties because they set themselves a limit and they feel that they need to stick to that limit.
True.
and they miss it for $5,000 or $10,000. You know, I remember having a conversation with my wife when we bought a property in Erskineville for $580,000. At the time, it was a lot of money, and my wife didn't want to go further than another $5,000. And we look back on that experience now. That was in 2007. We bought it for $580,000. That same property now is worth $1.1 to $1.2 million. So if we had missed that for $5,000, we probably would be divorced today.
So bid strong and have a bit of a floating budget at the end of the day. Look at the big picture.
Absolutely.
Now, what are some no-nos? Just quickly.
Look, there definitely are some no-nos. I see a lot of people who sit back and wait at auctions. They wait to see the bidding strategy play out. Often, particularly in a really strong market, a lot of the parties that actually sit back don't do anything. An owner will tend to not look favourably on that purchaser if there is any post-auction negotiation.
Right.
And I also find that for those parties that sit back and wait, sometimes the bidding might go above what they were prepared to pay, and they don't even have the opportunity to put their best foot forward. So sitting back and waiting in this market right now, I don't think is a very intelligent strategy.
Don't sit back and not be competitive. Voice where you are. I agree with you.
I think another aspect of a bidding strategy that I see is a negative strategy and hasn't been working and doesn't work in my opinion, is where the buyer is very standoffish towards the agent. Some buyers feel like, don't come and talk to me, I'm here, I've got a strategy in mind, I don't need your help, or you're the agent, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I think that only places a negative connotation on what really should be a positive impact and a great time in your life, whether it's buying an investment property or buying your own home. The agent...
If I could interrupt, I totally agree with you. We had a scenario recently where one of our sales chaps was genuinely trying to help a buyer and give them a bit of advice, because they got quite emotional and they're quite caught up. And I would suggest to you, if that buyer had taken that advice and bid a little bit more aggressively, they possibly would have saved themselves $50,000 to $60,000 in what they purchased at. But so I agree, you kind of got to have a little bit of an alliance, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Communication.
Even though the agent's role is to get the best result for the owner, that's what they're remunerated to do. You can still do that in a nice way and have a great relationship with the agent, because if you've got a good relationship with the agent, Rick, as you know, there's lots of vendors who are in this market right at the moment that haven't put their property on the market because they want to try and buy something before they sell. Those properties are what we call off-market transactions. If you've got a great relationship with an agent and a great relationship with the person that's trying to help you buy something, then that agent might be able to let you know of something that is not on the market yet, but actually really might suit you. So if you miss out on that property at auction, they might have something else that they can show you through off market without any other competition.
Very true, very valid points. Wow. A few things to think about there. Damien, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rick. My pleasure.
Let's catch up again another month and get another market wrap if we
Sure,
possibly can.
no problem.